I've mentioned before that I like to make my own tomato sauce or marinara sauce. Sometimes I do marinara, sometimes tomato and basil. There's a lot of ways that you can switch up the herbs and the different ingredients in tomato sauce to give it a little bit of a different twist. And tonight I'm going to walk you through one of the versions so y'all can kind of see how it's all put together. I'm going to flip this around so y'all can see. Hey Stephanie, how are you? Hope you're having a great weekend. Okay, so I have some canned tomatoes here. My grandmother actually grew these tomatoes and canned them, so you really can't get any better than that. But if you don't have a grandma that cans tomatoes, or you don't have your own garden, then store-bought canned tomatoes are just fine as well. So I have my Dutch oven over here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on to medium real quick, and I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in the bottom, just maybe a tablespoon-ish. And I chopped up a clove of garlic earlier. I just minced it. And I'm going to throw that in our pan to release some of those oils. Get that all nice and warmed up. And I'm going to grab a spoon here. Okay. So I'm just going to stir this around a bit. I don't want to burn our garlic. Oh, there we go. You can see better. So one reason I like to make my own tomato sauce is because it has just a fresher, more delicate, but almost richer flavor than tomato sauce that you buy in the store. I just love the freshness of it, and you can kind of customize it a bit to your own taste. You know, which herbs you like, or if you like onions or don't like onions, or garlic or that kind of thing. And then of course, obviously I make this dairy free for James, but a lot of tomato sauces are naturally dairy free. This is smelling really good. But also you can kind of control all the additives. You don't have so many preservatives in it. And obviously no high fructose corn syrup is going into this, but I don't use any added sugar as well. And so that makes it a bit healthier. We just have a lot of good tomatoes and vegetables going on. And garlic's actually really good for you too. Okay, that's smelling really good. I'm just gonna so that's gone for like about a minute or so. We really don't need to have that cook for too long. Okay, so I have 3 cans of tomatoes in their juice here. And they can be seeded or de-seeded, it really doesn't matter. I'm just going to pour these into our pot. 3. Alright, so 3 cans of tomatoes in there. And then I also have a jar of tomato paste I'm going to put in. Let's see. Oh, where'd my spoon go? Oh, there we go. Hold on, the tomato sauce it doesn't come out quite as easily as the tomatoes do. Okay, there, y'all can still see. There we go. So the tomato sauce will just help thicken it up really nicely. And just add a concentration of flavor there. I hope you and Maris are doing well, Antonio. Excited. Oops. All of that. This probably would have been thick no matter what I put it in, so we're just getting that all out. Okay, awesome. So that's pretty much all of the tomato sauce there. Okay, and I'm going to just stir that in a little bit since the tomato paste is so thick. All right. Okay, so this is where you have a little bit of a choice coming up. So obviously the tomatoes are whole here, and we want it to be a smooth sauce. I used to blend the tomatoes and onions if I was using them in my food processor before adding them to the pot. But my mom got me an immersion blender for my birthday last year, and it is amazing. So it makes making sauces and soup so much easier. So here's our immersion blender right there. And I'm just going to plug that in. We have this handy plug on the island that makes it super convenient. And I'm just going to stick this in here and blend it all up. So when I have a mini food processor instead of a big one. I probably really need to get a big one, but if I was doing 3 cans of tomatoes and an onion, that was easily 3 or 4 rounds in the food processor getting it all blended up. So I'm not a huge fan of onions, so tomato sauce or marinara sauce is really the only time I cook with them, so blending them up and not just chopping them up is a must for me. So I would always blend those up with the tomatoes. So my grandmother has a great marinara recipe, tomatoes, onions, I don't remember all the ingredients that are in it that we always use when we're making lasagna. She has a fantastic lasagna recipe that she got from a housewife in Italy when my grandfather was stationed there in the Air Force. Okay, it looks like I have a little helper over there. Say hi, James. Say hi. Okay, this is looking really nice and blended up. Awesome. So I'm just going to set that to the side. I'll set that on our cutting board over there. Are you going to help us stir, James? I know you're going to help us eat it. You're a good eater. Okay. And now I have about half a teaspoon each of freshly ground sea salt and black pepper, and I'm going to add that. And I also have 2 teaspoons of dried basil. I used up all my fresh basil last week when I was cooking a whole bunch, so I'm using dried basil tonight. And so 2 teaspoons of dried basil, and I also added 1 teaspoon of oregano and 1 teaspoon of thyme and 1 teaspoon of parsley. So that gives us a nice Italian herb mixture. Oh, thank you, James. He's bringing my spoon back. How sweet. He is a really good helper. I'm going to have to put him to work in the kitchen once he gets to be a little bit taller. All right, so I'm going to stir this in. I can really smell the tomatoes. They're smelling so good, and with all the herbs. I love the smell of basil especially. It's hard to beat this, the smell of fresh basil, but all of these dried herbs are smelling fantastic too. Okay, so that's all nice and blended up. So basically, that's all there is to it. All we have to do now is basically it's a waiting game. So I'm going to turn the temperature up to high and kind of bring this to a boil, and then I'm going to reduce the heat to simmer, and then I'm just going to simmer this like anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, just kind of depending on how high I leave the temperature and how frequently I watch it. But basically we're just going to reduce this a bit. The pot's a little over half full. Maybe it's about 2/3 full now, but we'll probably reduce this until it's about half full or a little bit under. But you can see how watery it is right now. We just want it to get it to a nice thickness, like and consistency of basically you just think. Okay, thank you, James. of a tomato sauce that you would get at the store. Okay, and you can adjust your preferences there too. If you like a thicker, chunkier tomato sauce, you don't have to blend up the tomatoes as much. You can leave it chunkier. You can cook it down a little bit more and have that thicker sauce, especially if you're doing a hearty ragu. You might would want to do that. Or if you want a lighter, thinner sauce, if you have some really delicate noodles, then you can always adjust that to your preferences as well. And I can usually get a couple of uses out of a batch like this. So I would say once I'm done, this batch will probably fill up a standard size tomato jar or tomato sauce jar. All right, so in just a few minutes, once this has really come up to a simmer like it's just starting to, I'll just bring that down and let it go for a while and watch it. But I'm also making some fresh pasta tonight, which I haven't done in a while. But a little while ago, I kneaded my pasta together just using some flour and some eggs, a little bit of olive oil, and a little bit of sea salt, and I kneaded that together, and I'm letting it rest for a bit now, and then in a bit I'll roll it out and run it through my pasta machine to get it really thin and cut it up into ribbons for pasta. So if you don't have a pasta machine, you can also roll out your pasta by hand, and I've done that before I got my pasta maker a few years ago. You can roll it out really thin on your counters and then just cut the pasta into strips. But that's for another video, since I already went over making tomato sauce today. I hope y'all enjoyed that recipe and got a few tips that you and your family enjoy. Take care. Have a great evening.